Hello, ladies and gentlemen, Conodger here, and welcome back to Automation, the car company tycoon game. Today we are continuing on the Vector Automotive Challenge in the year 1985, and I've got a special mission for us, and that is to revive a car we quite significantly failed at over the years, and that is the Vector Combat. We are going to try and get into this muscle car market that we have tried to get into for nearly 3 decades now, and we're going to do it in an era where muscle cars are starting to become extinct. What better time than now, right? Last time in 1984 we made a new Vector Able that is launching itself into a different market than its first incarnation, moving itself into the mid-size sedan and wagon territory. Today we're going to use that same platform to try and revive the combat. By reusing this same platform, I'm hoping we are going to be able to spend a lot of money and time to really make this a top performing car. We want to move the combat out of the pony car category into the muscle car category, into the dream car category. If we fail to do that today, I will never make another combat ever again. The available chassis in 1985 is quite limited to us at the moment, so using this one is really the only option I have available to me at the moment. I need to make its proportions larger. I feel as though its smaller scale is going to hurt us, but hopefully we can manage to pull this off. Alright, now that's a pretty modern looking vehicle if I do say so myself. It's a little bit different than the Able. It's going a little bit further with the newer designs of the era. I think it's pretty sharp looking. It's not too extreme looking. The red is actually working pretty well for this car. Let's see if maybe just a little bit darker of a red. Yeah. Let's do that. So in the chassis department, we are going to be using pretty much everything that is the same from the Able, except that this one will be a front longitudinal setup instead of a front transverse setup. This chassis has the option of either way, and that is something that is very good for us. It already had a transmission tunnel and all that fun stuff, so that's what we're going to do with it. In the engine shop, we don't really have many muscle engines to choose from right now. We have that new V6 setup that is working out quite well for us, but that is working out well for us in a smaller car and in a different market. I'm not sure it really fits this particular car's goals. Now the BV6, the, Group B spec engine, is quite something. It makes 200 horsepower, 180 foot-pounds of torque, and all that fun stuff. It's not the engine, I think, that will take this car where we need it. And what we need to do is somehow, even in these tough times with the emissions laws clamping down on everything and ruining all our fun, and unleaded fuel is really putting the strain on our octane levels and limiting the amount of compression we can use, I really think a V8 is the right choice for this car. Our company is going to need a V8. I feel as though not having one in our lineup is hurting us, so I think it's time we design one. But we're going to do it Vector style, and that might be a little different than what our competitors are doing. So because I need this engine to be on the small side for future applications, I'm going to have to make it somewhat of a small bore. So we're going to have a larger available stroke to us so that we can have the displacement necessary to do things like we need for the combat. As far as the heads and valves go, as far as like the position of the cams, I'm going to stick with doing overhead cam. We don't do pushrod engines. I am going to make this claim right here, right now. From 1985 forward, Vector will never make another pushrod engine. There's no reason for it, and it is not the right choice for our company. So let's do a single overhead cam 3-valve per cylinder setup. I think that is the perfect mix for this engine. And as far as the bottom end goes, we're not going to do anything too crazy here. Cast iron, cast, and we'll do hyper-tested cast pistons. Those piston velocities are going to be pretty high considering the stroke of the engine. We'll have to probably revisit this. Remember I said that the compression ratios have been hurting lately for our engines due to our octane restrictions. We will have to try and make that 9.0 work. Maybe a little bit different than that, but not too much. There's not a whole lot we can do there. For now, let's keep this thing naturally aspirated, but the option's there in the future. Should we need to throw some turbos on there, we have had some success with turbos here recently. Now, when it comes to the fueling system, this is where things are going to get a little bit more interesting. I am going to go for injection, and I'm going to go for multi-point EFI, and I'm not going to go for single, I'm not going to go for twin. We're going to go for a throttle per cylinder intake setup here. Completely cutting edge. This is something that only the Japanese really motorcycle manufacturers and just barely getting into automotive manufacturers are looking into. I think it's a huge benefit to this engine and will help push us out of the pony and into the muscle. And plus, if we ever need to do a race intake on this thing, it'll look like that. So what we now have available to us for the first time is premium fuel. Now that is not the premium fuel we know of today. That's only 90.3 octane. That's mid-grade in today's standards, so for 1985, 90 is still a huge improvement over 86.5, and is going to make this engine, I think, have some pretty fantastic numbers. I do want it to have somewhat of a decent economy, too. This is still an era where good fuel economy is something people, even in this market, look for in a car. Exhaust. I guess I'll do tubular headers because that just seems like the bare minimum for it, and anything more is probably too extreme. Horsepower wise, I have no idea. I have no idea what kind of numbers this engine will put out. Let's say under 350 though. That would be my estimate. Let's do a three-way count on there, and we'll do a straight through. Yeah, let's just do a straight through setup for now. See how it sounds. If it's too obnoxiously loud, we'll have to take that down a notch. What do you think, though? Oh, it's already got numbers up. Oh, why does it have numbers up? I didn't test it yet. 320, but it's exploding. Remember what I said about that long stroke nature, conrods, and pistons? Not too happy. Not too happy at all. So we can start by knocking off a few 100 RPM. That makes it survivable. But we're actually losing out on horsepower there because it's wanting to make a lot of horsepower up there. What can we do to fix that? In the bottom end, we would have to go for a forged... No. Yeah, we'd have to go for a forged piston and an I-beam steel connecting rod. That's a little gross. That's a little too pricey. Let's see what we could do with a cast and just a hypertectic. If we maybe shortened the stroke a little bit. Yeah, then we can make it happier. If we shorten that stroke down, we can get that piston velocity down, we can get the strain on the connecting rods down, then we don't need to go too crazy with the bottom end materials. We're still at 4.6 liters, not too bad, a little smaller than I had hoped for, but if we can get it to be reliable and we can get back over that 300 horsepower mark, then I think we still have something going here. Thankfully, we have that 90 octane fuel now. We can bring that compression up to 10.0 to 1. That really makes this thing a screaming, you know, almost race-ready engine, especially with this individual throttle body setup. This engine is now a little bit more exciting to me. V8s in the past have not really been something that have been a huge interest to me. We're kind of already at the horsepower numbers I was aiming for, so I'm actually going to detune the fuel mix to save us some economy, and let's see what that number is looking like. 15, that's actually really good. I think that's far north of what I was anticipating. Exhaust-wise, do we still need that? We just barely do. So we will keep the 2-inch there. And loudness-wise, 57 might actually be too loud, so I think we'll stick another straight-through muffler on it. This is somewhat a strained engine as of right now. Still, I don't like the orangeness, and I don't like the 42 reliability number. So I think I'm going to go to the bottom end, and I'm going to increase the quality one little bit there. And I'm also going to take the stroke down just a tiny bit more. Gosh, at the end of the day, there's just no way to really get the most out of this engine, especially this awesome fueling setup, without having a good bottom end. Because now I'm sacrificing the performance of this motor to save the bottom end and save our reliability standards. I said I wanted to push this car, and I said I wanted to push it into a different market. So why don't we go full out with that? Yeah. Let's go all the way. And now this engine has a little bit of future proofing too. We can get easily, I would say, another 100 horsepower out of this engine should we need it, and not have to spend much more money to do it. So we end up at the end of the day with a 301 horsepower engine at 6,000 RPM. It's got a little bit left in its range, so you get a little bit past the power peak, which is nice. It's got a kind of a mid-peak torque curve at 298, 6,400 RPM rev limit, and a 16.48 economy. I am pleased with all of those, and we got the reliability up to 57, which is much better. It is pricey, and we'll see what that does for us. Alright, now for the task of putting the trim together for this car, and obviously I'm going to go with the manual. You guys know me by now, I never choose automatics. I hate automatics, even though obviously as a car company we would have to offer them. We'll just pretend that I do that off camera. 5-speed gearbox I think would be good for this engine because it is a little bit high strung. A 4-speed would probably be acceptable, but I think it would probably be missing out at some of that great top-end power band. Obviously we're going to need a little bit more top speed than that. We have new options here in the differentials. We have a viscous LSD available to us, which is half the cost of a geared LSD. Really good options for other cars, but I think this car is going to need the geared. Wheels and tires, wheels and tires, wheels and tires. 15s I think is probably the correct size, but we need more width. Lots more width. 215s look pretty good, but I'm thinking we could probably go to a 225 in the back. Give it a little bit of stagger. It's got the power to accommodate it, and it gives it a nice look. I like the classic 5-spoke on there. Really wish we could change the wheel color. I think that's something that will happen in the Unreal Engine. Not 100% sure on that, but that'll be cool. Moving along though, we'll make those aluminum wheels, and we'll leave the quality. I usually go 2 just for a base. Vented discs, we will need lots of braking power because I expect this thing to go really fast and to go really fast in a straight line. I think those rotors might be too small though. You think? Think those are too small? Let's increase that size up to fill up that 15-inch wheel. And we'll do a sizable increase in the rear as well. We'll tune all of this as we go though. This car does have downforce options available, front and rear. We will look into that later. Those are just for styling as of right now. And let's be honest, that lip in the rear probably ain't doing too much. This engine doesn't need nearly as much cooling as I expected. We have 700 available with these huge grills. We're not going to use that though. This car is big enough to call it a 2+2. The insurance companies like it when we call it a 2+2. We're going to call it a 2+2. We'll do a sport interior with a standard 8-track. Power steering, ABS is now available to us. Interesting. Do we want to use it? No, not for right now. Standard on safety, and let's see about suspension. Standard springs, definitely not a progressive setup on this guy. We'll do gas monotubes, and we'll just do a default sport setup for now and tune it later. Initial reports aren't terrible. 16.9 on the miles per gallon is a little less than I expected. 2,600 pounds is a lot less than you'll find in competitors. That's about 1,000 pounds less than a similarly marketed F-body Camaro or Firebird or Mustang, any of those kind of cars, which are all technically pony cars, but let's be real. In the 80s, the term muscle car is basically when the transition happened that pony cars became muscle cars because that became the top of the performance ladder in that market. It's kind of sad that happened, but it is true that happened. The Corvette, I'm not really sure that's fair to call a muscle car. It's a real muddy era, this mid-80s is. But we'll see what we can do in the markets. We're not going to look there just yet, though. Let's go back and... Yes! Yes. Muscle is the first one it chose. That makes me happy. Pony's there, but it chose muscle first. Alright. Now I'm confident that we're on the right track here. Gearing pretty darn close first try. I may actually be able to reduce the spacing. I Thing's got a nasty amount of wheel spin. That's something we're really going to have to look into here. And 225, I believe, is the largest we can go in the back. Oh, we can go to a 235. It's going to introduce some understeer and only reduced the wheel spin by a very small amount. So that might not be worth it at all. We will see. Quality increase, again, not really a huge benefit there. Just so much you can do with a tire of this size. Brakes were pretty much good already. We have a little bit more rotor size than we really need, so we can lose some weight and money by reducing the size of those. Do obviously need to do some suspension tuning. Obviously the dampers need some fixing, and let's see, we could throw some camber into the front of it to try and get rid of a little bit of that understeer, just to make it sportier, just to make it market better. Turns out muscle car buyers aren't a fan of their cars bottoming out, so we raised that ride height up and made everybody much happier. Been a little bit of a loss for tuning on it at the moment, though. I don't know exactly what to do, where to go with it. Let's look at it in a test track environment. 5.80 to 60 is very good. 13.8 quarter mile is very good. 160 top speed is maybe a little bit lower than I would hope for, but I think if I think back, if I put myself in 1985, that's actually really quite good, and it does, to me, read like a muscle car. It doesn't have the best cornering, it has okay cornering, but when you hit the gas, it makes you, get shoved back in the seat, and that's what a muscle car is all about. I think this pretty much sums it up. A rear-wheel drive hooligan and straight-line performer with a big engine and lots of muscle. Yeah, that's what I was aiming for. However, it's also doing well in sport budget and does okay in pony, but I do think it's too expensive for that. Now, I haven't added the markup on this guy, which there will be a markup on it, obviously. And when you do that, that does make it not perform too terribly well in pony. It's actually, there's only one competitor in muscle, so it's hard to compare, but I do think that's more where this car is in line with, and the numbers here do definitely agree with that. It's not as broad of a vehicle as we've often made. The budget of these buyers is about $21,000. This is looking to be about a $17,000 car. So that's good there. It's hard to say though. I think I might need you guys to help me out. Compare this car versus other mid-80s muscle cars. Whatever you think that is. Whatever your interpretation of muscle car is, I want to get graded by you guys on this one, because I feel like I have failed on the previous muscle car builds, the previous combats. So yeah, I'm gonna leave this a little bit up to you guys if you think this is an actual muscle car or not. Like I said, if this is not muscle, if I've failed again, I may just retire the combat. This whole nameplate may be tarnished by now, and we'll just have to try something else in the future. You never know. It happens in the automotive design world. Sometimes brands and like names and a car's history just ruins it. So you gotta start over. You gotta start fresh. Hopefully that's not the case. I think this is the savior for the combat. And there is more we could do with it. There's absolutely more we could do with it. I'm a little short on time today to do that, so I'm going to end this one here. So we'll do another episode next week, and we'll go further with the combat. We'll go a lot further with the combat. There's this whole other market that I've never even tried to step into, and that is muscle premium. I don't even know where to begin with muscle premium. I don't know what exactly they're looking for there, but there's 9 competitors in that field. Hey, get off there, boxes. There's 9 competitors in that field. That one's probably even more difficult. Look at the cost on that one, though. $43,000. How do you even spend $43,000 on this car? I don't know, but I'm going to try. So that's what we'll do next time. Thank you all for watching, and let me know how I've done here. I will see you next time.